today I want to show you that I bought these herbs from the store, from the Asian store, and where I live in Ohio, we can't, there's like, usually there's probably, if you're from a bigger Hmong area, then you can probably go buy like seedlings at the store or whatever. I'm not sure what you guys do in the bigger cities, but for us in the smaller city, we always had to go to a soccer tournament or whatever. Usually my mom would go to Wisconsin, to Oshkosh, and people would sell starting seeds there. So that's how we used to get our herbs. And soccer tournaments aren't happening anymore because of COVID. So I was thinking that maybe I could just propagate. So if you may or may not know, but I'm a super plant mom, and today what I'm going to show you is I have some mint. So I have some mint, but I do know that mint is very invasive, so I'm not going to put it in the ground. I'm actually going to propagate it. Hopefully it has some roots, and then once it's established a root system, I'm going to put it outside in a pot. And Thai basil is a plant that doesn't come back every year, so I can propagate a few of them. I'll probably give one to my sister, and then we'll go from there. I think my mom did do seedlings for this, but sometimes I can't wait for her. She takes too long. In Hmong, it is called Lo Lun Cha Kia, or in English, you probably know it more commonly as Vietnamese coriander. And these are all herbs that are good for, like if you're gonna make la or something. These all go in la. So I think I bought so much, and I'm gonna have to make la later this week. And then continuing with the la theme, right? Lemongrass. So I just picked this up from the Asian store. It's lemongrass. Honestly, it's already like got some mold on it, but very salvageable. We can make this still happen. Lemongrass is super, super resilient. So I'm gonna get some roots on this, and then eventually I'll plant this in the ground because this also comes back. I mean, lemongrass does not come back every year. Lemongrass grows into like this giant bulb bunch thing. And then eventually at the end of the season, you have to dig it up. And then once you dig it up, then you can prepare it for the winter. But this Vietnamese coriander, the roots are very resilient. So as long as you mulch it up and you cover it really well, then this Vietnamese coriander does come back every year. So let's get started.
You can't propagate plants without a mason jar or a vase full of water. For the lemongrass, chop off the end and peel off 2 to 3 of the outer layers. I'm just cleaning it up so it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and not so rough around the edges. For the basil, you really only need a couple of leaves left on and the nodes. Let me show you. Snip off the small offshoot stems and these leaves that really do nothing. Where I'm breaking off these stems, they're all nodes. Remove stems that are starting to flower. If you keep the flowers on, the plant will use the energy on seeding instead of rooting. Here, you can see the flower is starting. Here's a close-up of the before and after for the Thai basil, and check out these nodes. Same as the lemongrass before, place into water. Mint is the exact same process. Remove these extra leaves and just make sure your mint has nodes. You'll need at least one single node in order for it to root. Vietnamese coriander is the same thing, but luckily there are plenty of nodes. Remove all these lower leaves and keep only 3 to 5 leaves. You guessed it, place into water.
And there you have it. That's how I prep these for propagation. I've done the lemongrass a few times, so I'm quite confident that this will work out. There's a couple ways you can do the lemongrass. Once it starts rooting, you can put it in a cup with soil in it, or sometimes you could just directly put it in soil, but I don't like doing that method because I like my plants to already have roots and then put in soil. Otherwise, the water has to always kind of stay moist, and I feel like that's more work. After the lemongrass grows roots, I usually just plant it outside, but it would be better if I put it in soil in a little cup first. So that's probably what I'll do this year. I'll probably put like 2 in each cup with soil and then let that really root really well, and then I'll put it outside in the ground. And lemongrass is amazing. It's so nice to have fresh. Now the basil right here, you can tell that it's still very fresh. It's still very it's really hard. It's not real limp and sad looking. Basil I have propagated before in the past too and had success with that. So the basil I'm confident about. The mint, I feel like, I don't know if I've ever done it. I think I've done it in the past, but it wasn't as successful as mint is the best. If you can just go dig it up somewhere else and then plant the entire soil and everything into a pot or something like that. That is the best way to do mint, but it's not always, since mint is so invasive, my mom and my sisters and them, they don't really plant it, so it's not always easily accessible for me, and usually I always do it in a pot because I've always lived in an apartment before this. So the mint is so invasive. I really thought about putting it in the ground, but my sister talked me out of it because it's just a mess. I don't want to deal with it. So the mint is really sad and limp, but hopefully now that it's in water, it will help. And I didn't cut the ends off or anything because sometimes I kind of feel like that leads to rot. And this Vietnamese coriander, I have never done it because my Vietnamese coriander, I planted it in a pot a couple years ago, and it comes back every year, but I didn't super take good care of my Vietnamese coriander last year. So I don't know if the root system survived the winter because it's just in a pot. It's not in the ground. I don't mulch it or anything, but we'll see how this goes. There's a lot of nodes on the Vietnamese coriander, and honestly, I believe the Vietnamese coriander is also kind of invasive like the mint. I think that if you grow it in the ground, it's kind of hard to get rid of it. So I might do the mint and the Vietnamese coriander in a pot. Since the lemongrass, if you dig it up, it comes out in a big ball. I'm going to keep the lemongrass as is, and the basil will die once it gets cold. So I'll keep that as is. But yeah, the mint and the Vietnamese coriander, I'm probably just going to do pots because they can get a mess, and I don't want to deal with that in my home. And this is it for this video. Maybe in a couple weeks I'll check back in to show you the progress. It'll probably take a couple weeks until you really start establishing a root system. And then for the herbs, I'm just gonna put them straight into the ground probably, but we'll see how everything goes in 2 or 3 weeks.